We appear to be live. I am sponsored, as always, by Liquid Death Water, and I'm drinking the sparkling water version this time. And I'll take a little sip of it. Yep, it's mountain water out of a can. It's Liquid Death. It's good stuff. That's about all I'm going to give him because they gave me shit about my last read, so I'm not going to give him a whole much more because this is all extra anyway. So here we are. We are back in my very sterile environment with a messy quilt on the bed because my daughter and her husband and both my grandkids came to stay over the weekend. So we're just cleaning up after that. And you can see right behind me there, there's a little portable crib that needs to be put away yet. So we'll get that done, and I'm gonna get my room treatments done at some point because, I know I sound a little echoey and all that kinda stuff, so, I will, get that taken care of. But tonight, I'm excited. I'm super excited. Tonight, I'm excited to put my memory card in the, soundboard, and, I'm really excited to have this guest on because, Uh, my guest tonight, she's a Chicago born and raised. She's a comedian that was formerly based in Shanghai. That's in China. She was the first black comedian to perform at the Mongolia at the Silk Road Comedy Festival in 2019. And what I want to talk about is she really leaned into the virtual comedy by saying yes to all the virtual shows, including a little show I like to call the BTB Internet Talk Show, and that kind of made her a sought after act after the clubs reopened, and now she's doing some traveling. And I just want to talk about how all this came to be. I'm going to bring on Erica Switzer. Erica,
Hey,
oh
Scott, thanks for having me.
yeah, how are you tonight?
I mean, the way you just talked about me, I am that is amazing. I need to put that on repeat and play it every morning.
All right. Yeah, I'll send you the sound file and you can use that if you want to listen to my voice every morning. You are more than welcome to it.
It was just the amount of uplift that you
Yeah.
brought, and I'm flabbergasted. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I like about you. You are an uplift type person. You were one of the few people who never okay, all the comedians are on Facebook. Well, not all of them, but a lot of the comedians are on Facebook, and a lot of the comedians subscribe to the soap opera digest, I think, because they all bring a certain amount of drama to everything and a certain amount of negativity and stuff like that. And you always, always, always rose above it. And was always impressed with that. It's so funny that when you see so much of it, you start noticing the ones who aren't participating. So, and you were one of those. And I was always happy to see one of those people because even I got caught up in a couple of them, and you know how it goes. But it was just nice to see during all that. It's funny when you put Facebook and when you put all these groups together, it's a typical local comedy scene, except for it's bigger. And you get all the same stuff that you get in a local comedy scene. So it was nice to see you rise above it and be kind of a helper to other people. I remember I asked you to help me out when I was doing my little pledge drive to win my little podcast award, and you were like, "Sure." You didn't even know me, and you're like, "Yeah, okay, I'll do that." And you came on and you helped, and uh, I got the silly little awards. So that speaks for itself. So it's nice to have you on. I really want to talk tonight about you know what's happened to you since you got back to the states and hit the pandemic and came out of the pandemic, and now we're in pandemic version 2 and all that kind of stuff. But first off, let's talk about what you've been doing lately, because I know you've been pretty much coast to coast, haven't you, in the last few weeks?
I have been bouncing around a lot, especially the past 3 months. I've
Uh-huh.
performed in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and California, in addition to Chicago. So
Mhm,
it's been a little surreal for me. I always kind of
mhm,
imagined hitting the ground running when things started opening back up, but I didn't imagine it to this extent. And the virtual thing had a huge hand in that.
mhm,
Um, when I came home, I don't want to say I was just going to be a free agent just because I came from some big global city, you
mhm.
know, and kind of because just in case anybody who's watching this who doesn't know me or my backstory, I didn't start doing stand-up comedy until I moved to Shanghai, China.
Mhm.
That is not on some grown woman eat, pray, love type stuff. That is not going to China. The Middle Kingdom is typically not what somebody thinks of when they're trying to go find themselves.
Yeah.
But I found myself there, kind of taking the reins and teaching kids and doing comedy and doing public speaking, all this stuff. And I was like, what? When I go home, I just want to narrow it down, focus on one thing. The comedy thing I think is going to hit, and it's been hit.
Mhm.
Let's say it's just been hit. I take
Yeah.
advantage of the virtual thing because I was literally the textbook example of a displaced comedian.
Right. Yeah.
There is no way in the world, in the history of the world, after 2020, was I going to keep my American ass over there? No, no. And so I just wanted to come home and really lean into my purpose.
Uh-huh.
And so that I've been able to do that. And so uh, in October of last year, I won the Flappers Comedy Club Super Bowl, which opened up a lot of opportunities for me with Flappers and getting me a chance to be seen by people nationally and especially in LA.
Mhm.
So, with that and with just now coming back from the Burbank Comedy Festival out there, people that already thought that I was an L comic, I get out there and it's like, oh, it's like, it's like, oh man, this is awesome. But I have to go ahead and take that roll of the dice. So even though some
Right.
people are like, oh man, doing virtual stuff is lame, it's not real comedy. For me, I needed any stage, and I've been seen by thousands of people from all across the globe on the other side of the world.
Right.
So doing that, grinding out, staying hungry, I was only hoping and praying and wishing and imagining, when I was winning the Flappers contest and sitting my laptop on a box and I'm sitting on the other box, I'm like, man, if this can happen, if this happens for me, I'm just hoping that some of these people that have seen me abroad can say, oh yeah, I remember her when, and
Right.
now
Yeah.
follow it from there. So for me, it's not to feed into anybody's drama about being Miss Popular or anything like that. For me, this is just following on what I feel like I was called to do and
Mhm.
being happy to do it in front of anybody. Clean, not so clean, virtual,
Right.
not so virtual. That's just how much I love doing what I do.
Yeah. And you always came, as far as how I saw you, you just never seemed to be anybody that, no matter what side they were on, no, everybody was still on your side. So I always felt like you were one of those people that everybody cheered for. Now I don't see everything because uh, I just don't get on social media that much, except for when I'm posting my own stuff and then going to bed. But it's just, it just seemed like you were one of the well liked people, and all the comedians I talk to say that if you're nice, it makes up a lot of ground for you quickly, because people just like to work with people who are pleasant to be around. And so I always got that from you, and you're just always there for the cause, and always there for any virtual show that popped up. I scanned those quite often when we were locked in, and just quietly watched most of the time. I didn't perform so much, but I watched quite a bit, and I always liked the way you were one of the few people who could do the timing right and allow for the uh, few seconds between what you say and the reaction, or even if there's not a reaction that you can hear, there's a reaction somewhere, and still playing off of it. So I always admired that about you.
Thank you. There is an art to it. For me, step one was to allow some of this comedy money from some of these shows to buy me better internet.
Yeah.
With getting my upload speed better, it helped me stay optimal so I could see on
Yeah.
top of what I was expecting, those reactions and stuff. I feel like doing comedy in China helped me get ready for that because, of course, if you're in a room where out of 150, half of the crowd is local and they
Mhm.
may or may not have a good grasp of the English language, you got five guys from France in the corner, a couple of couples from Germany over here. That laughter is going to hit different sides of the room at different times depending on the
Right.
joke. So I, I guess that's part of how I got kind of used to expect the matter. No one
Right.
went to just, all right, wait, pause, give them a moment. Now go ahead and get in the flow. So
Uh-huh. So thinking about when you were performing there in Shanghai, I'll ask you why in a little bit, but uh, I've talked to comedians from several different countries, and there's a cultural thing in each region that seems to be a little bit different. Like if you're over in the UK performing, you don't have to have as many laughs per minute. If you're building to a good laugh and you've got a decent story, the audience will allow that. Whereas here, they don't allow it as much. They'll start talking. They get disinterested pretty quickly. And then Australia is even more than the UK. I mean, you can go 20 minutes before you get a laugh as long as you got a good story. But then from everything I know from what I've seen as far as comedy in China, they need more visual, and they need more um I don't want to say slapstick, but they need to understand your emotions and what you're feeling by your facial expressions and stuff like that more so than the words. Am I reading that correctly?
that's very, very accurate. They're into what's called talk show style. So that
Uh-huh.
Abbott and Costello, that straight guy and the wacky guy, and the
Hmm.
slapstick thing definitely comes in handy, especially when you're a foreigner whose first language definitely ain't Mandarin, and
Uh-huh.
you want to be able to, at the very basic, relate to the local person who may not have a grasp of English. And like I said, those people who have a different kind of like fluency with English and a different comfort level. I think
Hmm.
one of the things that I can really hang my hat on is the fact that we had such a melting pot of comedians over in Shanghai.
Hmm.
So as you're mentioning these different nationalities, we got guys from every country,
Hmm.
and we're finding this kind of median. What does it take to make these folks laugh? What
Hmm.
jokes hit on what nights? Is it about doing the word economy? Is it about doing the act out here? How are we going to relate to these audiences? So uh you know 3.5 years of being in there with those guys and grinding it out and trying to get to the core of what's funny, and working as a team, on those
Hmm.
show nights really helped. It's helped me here try to get to the common denominator of what's funny.
Hmm. And so let's get to it. You started doing comedy there in Shanghai. What was it that made you take the leap?
A breakup.
Okay.
Doing a very black, marvelous Miss Maisel kind of thing in my life. I
Yeah,
went
yeah.
ahead and took a leap of faith. I knew it was something that that I wanted to pursue before I even left.
Uh-huh.
Because of course, if you're an American or if you're any kind of foreigner trying to go to China, you better go with a purpose.
Yeah.
You better go with some money and a purpose. There's no way you're gonna go from just making whatever you make it, whatever sub sandwich food chain, and paying 150 for your passport, paying 220 for your visa, making sure it's the
Mhm.
right type of visa. It's really crazy to even get over there.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I was over there with a purpose, and I knew I wanted to dive into comedy and public speaking and teaching and all that, and I
Mhm.
did. I let the public speaking thing happen first, and then spontaneously one night, I was just hanging out with a buddy who was doing a bartending gig at a cute little Polish restaurant. Two girls from Poland, I kid you not, the pierogi ladies, making it just like
Wow.
straight out of Warsaw in the middle of Shanghai.
That's
These guys,
great. That's
I know,
great.
these guys come in, they do some sets, and I'm like, oh man, this is really funny. It's me and
Mhm.
like four other people there. I'm kicking back because I'm pissed off about my breakup, and I just want to hang with the guys, talk some stuff. They're like, hey, you're funny. Come with us to the next spot. So we leave that spot, and it's a storytelling night. I made a routine of hanging out with these guys every couple of weeks or whatever.
Mhm.
Until after a while, they were just like, Erica, you're really funny. You need to just start doing this stuff. And so I finally did.
Uh-huh.
And that bug bit me 4 years ago.
Yeah. So did you come back to the States, like, right when the pandemic happened, or was it before or a little bit into it?
I came back right around the time it happened
So
because we were getting it out for like the Lunar New Year
yeah.
on January 24th. And we were being told as we were getting let out, be prepared to start teaching online when we're
Okay.
supposed to be back. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, this is some interesting stuff. I know we've heard some rumblings. And that day, it's like, I'm
Yeah.
freaking the heck out. I'm like, yo, I don't want to keep watching this thing grow in numbers and watch, the cases on the
Yeah.
GPS around me keep growing. I'm chain smoking, favorite cigarettes out of my fourth floor window. Freaking the heck out. Do I get back to Chicago? How? I was looking, I saw at one point it was like $3,600 for a one-way ticket back to O'Hare, and I was like, oh my God, I might have to do this though.
Yeah.
And I wound up waiting it out a couple of weeks, cycling through every emotion on a daily basis, waking
Mhm.
up not knowing if I was coming or going or who around me was or whatever. It's like, look, I really want to go home. I found a ticket for $100 one way. So Valentine's Day last year, I came home
Okay.
and was like, I'm just gonna stick it out for as long as I can. Still work and teach the kids, and my weird timings due to the time zone difference.
Mhm.
But I was not going to stay there.
Yeah.
I knew that. And I felt weird coming back and doing some open mics. Some folks that have seen me before, like, hey, Erica, come on my podcast, talk about what's going on. And I'm like, I don't know how much I can say.
Yeah.
I don't, I'll just like spoon feed you some of what I know I can't. I'm working on, and I'm going to get this. I'm going to work on this. One of the jokes I'm working on now, which I feel comfortable with telling people, is I'm here as proof that I am not the old black bat that started this.
Yeah. Yeah, that one hits.
Surreal, man.
That
it's,
that one hits.
it's surreal. It's surreal, and I'm glad that I finally get a chance to get more comfortable to be able to start telling it.
Yeah, yeah. Now, as far as, the I've seen you do, like 100% clean stuff, and I've seen you do your regular stuff. Which one do you lean towards more? Which one is actually Erica up there?
I'll say this. One of my best jokes is a very blue joke.
Uh-huh.
It's a foreplay with the aristocrats level blue.
Yeah, okay.
But one of the challenges that I was giving myself with doing virtual for a while was let me do clean. Let me go work completely clean and see where that takes me.
Mhm.
Um, I will tell you that the last show I did, as soon as I touched down back from LA last week, my mom was in the audience and I told my first jokes live on stage about my vagina in front of my mother. So I am now at this point of my career. Most of the kids I taught are 8th grade and up. They'll find out about it anyway. Let me go down as a bad bitch. Let's do it.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at right now. So we're gonna
Y
get a lot more raw on stage.
yeah. It's funny when you get up on stage, you really don't care who's in the audience. It doesn't affect you because you've got what you need to say and you just do it.
There's a certain amount of fearlessness that I used to have in my 20s when I was a cute little tight bodied something rampaging across the suburbs of Chicago. And I can't tell you how many nights of shaking it up at the Cubby Bear in Bar Chicago or any of those other places where I probably shouldn't have been. Um, there was a certain kind of fearlessness I would have to tap into being at a lot of places. And the people
Yeah.
that know me, especially those that went to high school and college, let me know Erica's a party starter.
Uh-huh.
Party gets started somewhere. Where's Erica? She's over there bent over. That's her, you know. So now it's just me having to be honest with myself and bring that thought spirit onto the stage
Yeah.
and just lean into it.
Yeah,
About
yeah.
time.
So when you okay, you get back to Chicago and you see the virtual stuff start popping up. Can you remember the first virtual mic that you did?
First virtual mic that I did was
Yeah.
Dario Durham's mic,
Okay.
and I was like, I wow, this is y'all are cool. Like I've been trying to like low key find out who's who in the Chicago scene. It's like some of these cats are right here, so this is cool.
Uh-huh.
So I was excited to find Dario's mic and to start working it from there. That made me feel that much more confident knowing that, here I am 7,000 miles away, still writing as a Black American woman, still giving these jokes,
Mhm.
and now coming over and saying, okay, now I'm finally doing them at home and it's working like I thought it was. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm writing in my real voice.
Yeah.
Oh.
And how much material do you think you got during that year plus that you were doing virtual stuff? How much written stuff do you have now that you are just ready to go on stage and do?
Hmm. I had probably come up with about 20 minutes of newer material
Mhm.
that I was just starting to do on some of the longer virtual shows that I was doing, some
Mhm.
of the virtual headliners that I was doing. Um, and even out of that, because now I'm in my own like weird material cycling process. I feel like it's about 8 solid minutes of that I'm keeping, and then I'm gonna keep it moving because I really want to get to this deeper, rawer,
Mhm.
you know, funner part of me that I'm rediscovering. And like
Yeah.
even going to my old stomping grounds. Like I don't live that far away from where I went to high school. Like
Uh-huh.
coming home and feeling some of those things again and starting to write about some of that stuff has been really what I needed.
Yeah. That's great. Now I have a perception of how you write in my head, and I wanna see if it's right or not. So, what is your what's your writing method? What do you do to make a joke happen?
Sometimes sometimes a joke will happen when I'm in the shower.
Okay.
I'm definitely a shower and drive writing comic.
Okay.
So, the phone's always nearby. I gotta hop out real quickly.
Uh-huh.
So the thing about those chicken nugget sauces is and then back into the shower. I am that kind of a writer. Um, and then, like I said, now I'm starting to kind of go back and feel some feelings that was feeling in some situations in college or in high school.
Hmm.
Just trying to get back to what I used to feel, because there
Hmm.
was tons of diaries,
Yeah.
that I was writing over those times that I've torn up and thrown away or got lost during moves. And I was like, let's get back to that as a grown up, because your snarky ass definitely got a different take on it now.
Yeah. So do you feel like when you get when you're working out a new joke, do you feel like it has to be 100% done before you get on stage, or do you sometimes just walk on stage with a premise and maybe a punchline and you decide you're going to work it out on stage?
I feel like starting to trust myself more to work it out on stage.
Okay.
I feel like I'll take a joke on stage if it's about 85% of the way, and
Mhm.
then try to feel it out a few different times at an open mic.
Mhm.
Um, and I feel like I don't fully ever give up on jokes. And Lord knows I've written a lot more that are just sitting and are just waiting for inspiration
Right.
before being dug out of the crypt.
Mhm.
But I am always trying to keep it more fresh and more current, and then see what I'm feeling, and process it accordingly, so that it's a rawer, realer emotion. I'm not just trying to have these are my Christmas jokes. I pull these out in Halloween.
Yeah.
No, I got those, but I want to keep expanding on all my topics too.
Yeah.
So
I'm going through the same thing as you, and as far as writing, I don't get the shower thing doesn't usually come to me, but the driving thing, I have found that if I turn everything off because I listen to podcasts and music and stuff like that and audiobooks. If I turn all that off and just drive, stuff comes to me. I start thinking about, and it's funny you talk about getting into your younger self's head and bringing that stuff back up, because I'm going all the way to grade school with my stuff, and it's it's weird because you think it's gone, and then when you start reliving it and start thinking it, it all comes back, including including the bad stuff. But you can make humor out of it. But I used to have everything in my head. I had to feel like it was fully baked before I went on stage, and it was never right that first time I did it. So I was always changing it anyway, and sometimes I changed it 5 or 6 times before I felt like it was at 80%. So since we made the big move, I just totally stopped writing jokes. I just write premises, and then I go to up on the open mic stage and work out a premise, and I sandwich it between two jokes that are okay, that I know are maybe 60 or 70% baked, and then I just listen to it and take it from there. I feel like I don't even write anymore. All I do is I've got all these premises written in my phone, and I just look at them. I'm like, okay, I'll do that one tonight, and I feel better about it, and I feel a little bit more, I guess, more comfortable with what I say, and comfortable either that it's good or it's bad. So sometimes you can have a joke that's fully written out and you get a couple chuckles and you don't know if it's good or not, especially at an open mic, and you don't know it's good until you do it in front of an actual audience. And now I'm to the point where I really don't care if it's good at the open mic. I just want to say it out loud once, and then I'll adjust as I go. So yeah, I'm kind of doing what you're doing, and it feels a lot better, and it takes all the pressure away from the open mic experience, because performing in front of other comics is just a pain.
it is. There is a freedom in that, and I'm glad that you say it, because I feel like I used to do that a lot more in the first 2 years I was doing comedy.
Mm,
I feel like I've been, especially within the last year and a half, I feel like I've been so focused on, am I making sure that the me that I brought from over there is still serving me?
mm,
Um, Now I'm at the point where you're right. I got to get on stage and be able to trust myself, because I know I'm a funny ass when I'm not on the stage, and I know
mhm,
I'm a funny person when I don't have a mic in my hand. So I want to be able to have that freedom to walk around in that space of that premise. So
mhm.
that's a great way to do that.
Uh, talking about the festival that went on in Burbank, because I actually had a couple of my personal friends do that, and I haven't gotten the lowdown from them because they're back in South Bends, and I haven't been able to talk to them since then. But that particular festival seemed like it was really good for a lot of comics that are like in your, like 5-year range to actually get seen by some of the more well-known comics and agents and stuff like that. How did that go for you?
I feel like that went great. And I think you're very right to say that, especially being a young old comic. I
Hmm.
feel like it was definitely what I need for right now
Hmm.
to help keep moving me along. Um, Flappers to come out of the gate anyway and be able to give me the opportunities they've given me has been awesome.
Hmm.
Um, to be able to make a Chicago girl feel like a LA comic is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Um, but also, to get there to do my sets at the showcases that I had and to move on to the best of fest, that was
Mhm.
awesome. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity and to be able to come out there to do it and to have fun with it and to get that accolade. That was icing on the cake.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And you seem just from I've never seen you live, but you seem from the virtual shows that I've seen to be a kind of a audience. I don't want to say that you do a ton of crowd work, but you interact with the audience as you do your act. Am I right in that?
Yes, I am a little flirty with my crowd, no
Okay.
matter what. I will say this: I've had people that have known me virtually for over a year say, "I thought you were so much taller."
Oh.
I am a very small woman, but
Uh-huh.
apparently, what I do virtually fills up the screen to an extent. So what I do on stage, it's a similar kind of energy. I get
Uh-huh.
Biggie Shorty energy or something. It's really Mighty Mouse energy.
Yeah. Are there any, since you grew up in Chicago, are there any, especially Chicago comics, but American comics that really inspired you to be the type of comic that you are?
I feel like my Mount Rushmore of Chicago comics is interesting. It would be Bernie Mac, Marina Franklin, Dion Cole, you know,
Mhm.
and I feel like my comedy is somewhere as a mixture of the three of them.
Uh-huh.
Um, s- I just love Chicago comedy, and I love what Chicago comedy has going on now. It's
Mhm.
crazy the
Yeah.
the talent pool out here. It's ridiculous.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just a legacy we have of just this raw, real, fun, high energy, in your face type of comedy. So I'm happy and excited to kind of be a part of it,
Yeah.
whenever I get
Yeah.
the chance to grace the stage in Chicago. But it's just an honor to be here and to be able to observe what coolness is going on out here.
Yeah. It's definitely a different vibe. I'm in Huntsville now, and it's definitely a different vibe because, my home club was the Drop Comedy Club in South Bend, and they pull a lot of Chicago headliners for their shows. And, you know, they also, I mean, they pulled from other areas too. They pulled from Indy, and then you know, uh all the way south. But a lot of headliners came from Chicago, and the energy from the Chicago comics is different from the comics I'm seeing here in Huntsville because they pull a lot from like Atlanta, and
Mhm.
so it's totally a different. It's I'm not saying one's funnier than the other, but it's a different vibe because growing up in the South Bend area, I identify with the Chicago comics more because I was close to that and went to Chicago a lot and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of that's one of the things I'll miss, but it also feels kind of nice to have that type of style because I've done some mics here and it's definitely different than what most of the people bring to the stage. So that it's kind of fun being the odd guy.
But then that's also a testament to how powerful just being from a certain region or knowing the comedy of a certain scene can
Yeah,
be. And
yeah.
we come to know and love that kind of Bernie Mac style delivery, or
Hmm.
Dion Cole's observational humor. We come to just love their references to the shared culture we have and those landmarks and those reference points, right? It's that same kind
Hmm.
of the warmth we feel when a traveling comic, remarks about a certain mall.
Hmm. Yeah.
But it's just that kind of familiarity. It's pretty cool. It's another added layer of relatability, I think.
Hmm. Hmm. And one of the things I like about your particular style is it's a racial element that is trying to bring people to an understanding and come together about the the problems with racism in our country. Okay, so you take a little bit lighter um uh approach to it, yet you are trying to make sure you address it. I've got a friend in Dwight Simmons. He's from in the Indianapolis area, and he's doing the same thing. And he used to do more. I mean, he didn't address the fact that he was black very much in his act, and now he does. And when we talked, when I interviewed him for the podcast, he felt like it was necessary for him to because it's one of those things that comedy almost needs to be a learning experience now for some folks. And I like how you do that. Is that something that's intentional or is it just part of who you are? That was a really long question.
But it serves its purpose.
Yeah.
So it's very intentional because with having my start in Shanghai, no matter what, I'm always representing for Black women.
Hmm.
I'm halfway across the world from where I'm from, and I'm representing Black American women.
Hmm.
I am not Cardi B on stage. I am Nicki Minaj on stage.
Hmm.
Given the right crowd, I'll go there verbally.
Hmm.
But my idea was to represent Black women differently.
Hmm.
And because no matter how I speak, you hear Sally Mae Loans in my voice. So I have to be true to who I am on the stage. And even if I am a little bit square or too educated, or oh, she sounds too much like a teacher for some people, I can't help you. I'm out here to
uh,
make you laugh, though. And I have to still be true to me, you
right.
know?
Right.
So going out there and being the representative, I had to make sure to come correct. And I'm trying to do that at home. Like I said,
Hmm.
for me, breaking the threshold of doing pussy jokes in front of my mama, I've now entered the space where I'm fully acknowledging I'm gonna have to be Nicki Minaj some nights on stage.
uh,
But that's not totally on brand for me yet.
uh,
When I enter the hipster some more phase of my career, and then yeah.
yeah. Now, you mentioned you've done some shows in Minnesota and Wisconsin, which are probably equally backward as Indiana, as the mid Indiana down to South Indiana are, as far as the crowds and having a lot of boomers in the crowd and stuff like that. Did you experience that?
Um, I is that an okay term to say boomer? Is it all right?
Yeah, I am one, so it's okay. Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to check comfort level with that one. Um, yeah, there was quite a few boomers in the crowd. I enjoy being ambiguously in the middle somewhere and confusing people as to what my true age is.
Uh,
But then this is also why I try to be relatable because, like I don't have kids, so I have to try to relate to the kids and the boomers.
yeah.
Um, there was a lot in Minnesota for sure, but there was great people. It was, for a festival and all that. And then
Uh-huh.
Wisconsin, there was a lot of folks on their like little summer house, little weekend staycation, Lake
Yeah.
Geneva and all that.
Uh-huh.
I was down with that. I like that. That's cool.
There's a certain type of hair that comes with that, both for the men and the women.
Yes.
It's it's bigger hair for the women, and the guys always have it parted to the side.
The number of polo shirts
Yeah.
does go up
Look
exponentially
look
when
look
you
what I'm
cross.
wearing. I'm wearing a polo shirt. I didn't have time to change from work, so
I am not the fashion police. Not tonight.
yeah.
No, I'm not. This is as low key as I get, This is an
Yeah.
H&M drapey black shirt.
Yeah.
Not Mrs. Blackwell. I do not. Everybody under 25 watching right now has no idea who Mr. Blackwell is. I have no
Yeah.
idea why I made that reference.
That's so funny because I went into an H&M this weekend, and I looked at the shirts there, and, I if I'm perceived as a, tall, large person, then that is correct. I'm extremely tall, and all those shirts I looked at, and I'm like, "No, my belly button's gonna show for sure on these." So, yeah, I didn't walk out of H&M with anything. Wasn't gonna even try. But, yeah, the reason why I asked about these different crowds, there's actually a tact to it because we talked about you in Shanghai working crowds that could have Americans in one corner and Germans in one corner and French, and then you got the locals and all that kind of stuff, and playing to that. Do you feel like that gave you some of the strength to understand how to read a room and know which way to go?
Most definitely. I think that had a huge role in helping me know how to read a room and read it quickly. But then
Mhm,
also fine tuning this material or like the cornerstones of my material, refining and testing it in front of so many different crowds. I feel like
mhm,
it's definitely been a win for sure.
mhm. So do you have, like, several different ways to deliver a joke then? So say you're in a, venue that has, you know, 50 of me and my wife that looks like we're not gonna go for the language. I you we may have that look, but do you have different ways to deliver just based on what you see in a crowd?
Most definitely.
Yeah.
It, depending on what the crowd looks like, there's a couple of jokes that I have where like a little crowd work will be like, so what's a song that you got in trouble for singing?
Uh-huh.
Right. Depending on the crowd, I might look at somebody and be like, ooh, Battle Hymn of the Republic. I try to gauge. I do pay attention in the room of what's going on before me. I hated going up one night after finding out that the youngsters in the crowd did not know who Randy Quaid was.
Oh, dear.
Are we that young in
Yeah.
these clubs? Man,
That's it's so hard because I think, those references are just so easy to know, and I I started I started doing jokes with references to, like, The Godfather, or, just things that were way too old, Gilligan's Island and the Brady Bunch and stuff like that, and it just doesn't work. So I've got a really young group of friends from the South Bend area, and I'm always messaging them saying, "Hey, of these 3 movies, which one do you know?" And
Mm.
and a lot of times it's none of them. Or these 3 actors, which one do you know? None of them. So you have to know that because certain crowds are just going to be 30 or 40 years younger than you, and you have to be ready for it.
I got so tired of just being over there and only making Star Wars references.
Oh yeah.
I don't like Star Wars. I'm a
Uh,
Star Trek baby. Come
thank
on,
you,
man.
thank you. Do you have
Sheesh.
any anti Star Wars jokes?
Not yet, because I never gave him that much consideration.
Okay,
Oof. These
someday we're
movies.
someday I would like to co-headline with you on the anti-Star Wars bent because I've got a few, and every time I do them, I get booed. So I want to be able to do them.
I will say this. My parents, around your age, they had me watching the first 3 movies when I was born. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh man, come on. They got me the books. They're some of the first books I start reading. I'm
Hmm.
5, 6 years old. I got to see Lando Calrissian and Carbonite. Do
Yeah.
you know how terrifying that was? The first brother I see in space got to get hemmed up like this. Why do you got to go out like that?
And the only black person in that movie.
Right. I'm like, yo, not this, not this. Give me Jordy the Forge, please.
Yeah.
LeVar Burton with a visor over. Let me give me that.
Yeah.
Don't freeze me out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my story is a little bit different because I was 14 when the first one came. I think I was 14 when the first one came out, 13 or 14, and I was one of those guys that didn't fit in anywhere. I didn't fit in with the jocks. We only had jocks and nerds, and I didn't fit in with the jocks because I played sports, but I was bad. And I thought when Star Wars came up, I'd go with a bunch of nerds and I'd be part of their nerd tribe and really like it, and I came out of it and they're all just saying how great it was. I'm like, I don't get it. It just looks like bad acting, and I never saw one after that. So if they're on TV, I'm like, skip, new channel. And I love Star
Mhm.
Trek. I was the same. I absolutely love Star Trek.
I have had never land on another cup of his hand. Just saying, okay, fine, but still, the carbonite scarred me for life. At least I thought it was Lando. Okay, so we gonna go with that. Now I guess there's some part of 6-year-old me that feels slightly vindicated. Appreciate you, Mark.
Mark seems to be popping up on all my shows, so
He's a good guy. Thanks for coming through. We appreciate it.
yeah.
I'm just
So
saucy tonight.
so you got me all fired up on the Star Wars thing. I'm how about Marvel movies? Are you big into the whole Marvel comic book stuff?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Um, I think the last 2 that I really paid attention to were Doctor Strange and Black Panther. After
Okay.
that, I checked out. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's almost like we're the same person. So that's funny. I
appreciate you,
like that.
brother. Yes.
Yeah. Now I'm going to come around to a couple questions that I ask almost everybody, and sometimes I get uh, the same types of answers, and sometimes I get really different answers. So I'm going to keep asking them. What is the best and worst advice you ever got as a comedian from a comedian?
Worst advice.
Yeah, best and worst.
The worst advice I heard was, Erica, nobody wants to hear you rant. Gotcha, Bucko.
Yeah.
Best advice I heard was just be undeniably funny.
Hmm.
That's it. That's the key.
Yeah.
And it's true.
Yeah. None of the rest of the stuff actually matters.
Yeah. Just
And
be undeniably funny.
yeah. And worrying about your own stuff is way more important than worrying about what somebody else does. So that's just me saying as an old man to all the young comics out there.
You cannot win a race if you're constantly looking over in somebody else's lane.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you don't have the fortitude and the focus and the drive to stay focused on your own lane, that's too much room for distractions and allowing somebody to get you tripped up.
Yeah.
All you got to really do is believe in yourself and show up day in and day out and do the work. So
Mhm.
instead of sitting back and hanging back and wondering, how did somebody get that? Why don't they get that? Why don't I get this? Start
Mhm.
asking, why can't you get that?
Right.
What's stopping you? And
Yeah.
if it's a sucky negative mindset, you might want to fix that.
Yeah. I like that. That might be a sound clip. Uh, Thinking about your career as like a bubble, what 3 things do you know now that you wish you knew when you first started?
You can capture lightning in a bottle.
Mhm.
Sometimes it does take just getting some fire premises and trusting yourself. Um, Absorb, like listen, but don't absorb everything,
Okay.
you know. And the third most important thing is to listen to yourself.
Mhm.
Shut everything else out, shut the noise out, focus, listen to yourself, hear what you really want, hear where you're really going,
Mhm.
you know. That's important.
Mhm.
It's important with anything in life, really, especially if you really want something in life.
Mhm. Very good.
Letting somebody else trip you up, that's not a good look. Like,
Yeah.
so
Now you seem to be somebody who would recognize a good comic if you saw one. So my my question is, do you see some people out there that are just working it so hard and you know that it's just never going to work for them because they just don't have the funny? And I'm not asking you to name names, but isn't there a certain type of person who makes it at this and a certain type who doesn't?
I would say so. And I think, and then this is probably because I'm very fortunate to not see a lot of comics like this, but I think when I was really starting to pay attention to the Chicago scene in the early to mid 2000s, I would see some comics like really push the cringe levels.
Uh-huh.
It's like, so what works for Tim and Eric doesn't work for everybody.
Right. Yeah.
And hardly ever translates to, you know, your local stand-up comedy stage unless your stuff is pristine, acted out, like darn near Comedy Central ready.
Yeah.
Like,
Right. Yeah.
so I think there's the folks that kind of push that line of uncomfortability and absurdism, without a clear like agenda. Like, are you doing, is this performance art or is this
Mhm.
comedy for real? Is
Mhm.
there an attempted joke? Is there a visual joke? Like, where is it?
Right. Yeah. And
So
I feel like, I'm the type of person I can look at a comic and if I don't appreciate the material or it's just not my thing, then I can still understand how they would be funny to somebody else. But then I see other comics that I just don't understand how they could appeal to anyone, and yet they're up there trying it. And the I guess the hardest thing to do is, and the easiest thing to do is just stop and not do it anymore. And there's a few that should, but then I see a few get Netflix specials that I thought should have stopped. But so I don't know. I don't know what is going on with that, but it's just one of those things. I think the work is extremely important, but you have to have some innate sense of humor. And I think most of the people that have that have appreciated a wide variety of comedy before they started. That's something that seems to be true of most comics that are really good.
I would hope that no one on their journey would be so absolutely rigid to not be able to take constructive criticism and make
Mhm.
adjustments.
Yeah.
I would hope that somebody would want to examine their why for doing this strongly enough to be able to make the corrections that they have to make.
Hmm.
Um, or even if it's just, oh man, I was just doing it on a dare and I like the high from doing
Yeah.
it over and over again, and I'm 7 months in and I still suck.
Yeah.
It's different. Um, but I think it's really important to really know why you're doing it in the first place. I would
Right.
hope that, and the only way to really get booked, aside from letting bookers see you, is to actually be funny.
Yeah.
So even if you bring 25 people in for a show, make them laugh.
Hmm. Right. Right.
Crack some jokes.
Yeah.
Be
For
relatable.
sure.
Get some smiles. Like,
Yeah.
bring it. Don't just, well, I'm here because this is cheaper than therapy.
Let's do a show, please. For the love of God, do a show.
Like, you could have bellyached at home. We would all have
Yeah.
been better off. Hernia surgery right now would be better than this. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Now, I've got one last question for you because you seem like a goal-driven person, and I would imagine you probably have written goals and you know what you want to do. What, where do you see yourself, or where would you like to be in 3 years?
I used to make a joke um, that I would be all about my Netflix 2023. I
Hmm.
have better goals for myself. Um, 20, hopefully in a movie, not a low budget one, please. At least 500,000 capital. Thank goodness, right? So I'd like to be in movies by then. I think I
That's
can do
great.
it. I'm ambitious enough. I think I can do
Okay, okay. I'll be glad to watch those when they come up. So as far as what you have going on and where people can find you, where can people find Erica Switzer on the interwebs?
it. Best place to find me because I'm on every major social media network in the States.
Hmm.
Best place to find me is ericaswitzer.com. Hit me up on IG or Facebook. Always popping on those. Twitter, my Twitter following. I got started doing hashtag jokes in 2013, so that explains those numbers. But
Yeah.
hit me up on there or any other type of social media. I usually get back to folks.
Yeah.
I'm pretty bookable and stuff.
Great.
I can work clean or dirty. You know. Tell jokes to make my mama blush. Like I said,
Yeah.
that joke was about my mama's like, you know what, baby, that's one of my favorite jokes of yours.
The funny thing is a lot of young comics don't realize that people our age have heard all that stuff before. Eh, I'm sure it's weird hearing it out of your child, but, I had my dad in an audience one time, and I was talking about some of the stuff that happened when I was a kid, and I knew it was gonna be uncomfortable, but it was what I brought with me, so I knew I was gonna say it, and I said it, and, he was okay with it. He didn't talk too much about it after that, but, it wasn't it was stuff that happened, um, very, very young, and it would be uncomfortable if I heard it as a parent, but it was also funny. So, that's the goals. People laughed. They liked hearing about my jeans being way too short and my mom sewing ruffles on them so that they would hit my shoes. So yeah, so that was
At least it was funny. See,
Yes, yeah. Well, it's been a real pleasure having you on, and I'm glad you had time in between all these live shows. I know things may go back to where they were if everybody doesn't get vaccinated and put their stupid masks on. But we'll see what happens. But it's been a real pleasure having you on the show.
thank you so much for having me. It's been great to hang out
Yeah,
with you again.
yeah. I had a great time. Thank you. And I'm going to get off of live now.